I'm gonna be making a video, but sorry to tell you this. This is the third time my brother has been obsessed with Skibidi Toilet. But let's watch shorts of his story. I'm starting this because I see everybody is doing this, so I'm gonna watch it.
She walked in, holding the arm of a man I'd never seen before. Stepdad, meet my real dad. My head started spinning on the spot. Your real dad? You mean the guy who's been gone for 20 years? She smiled and squeezed his arm. Yeah, and you're not invited to the wedding anymore now that he's here. My face went red, and my card slipped out of my hand, because I'd raised her since she was 7, and now I wasn't invited to her wedding. The man stepped forward and held out his hand. Appreciate the help, buddy, but I've got it covered from now. I ignored his hand and asked my stepdaughter who was walking her down the aisle. But he answered for her. That'd be me. My chest went cold, so I reminded her who paid for every chair in the room. She rolled her eyes. So what? I never asked you to do that. My fists were trembling with rage, so I stepped towards him and asked where he'd been all this time. But he threw his hands up and stumbled back like I'd swung at him, and my jaw dropped. My stepdaughter stepped between us. Stop! You're hurting my real dad. So I put my hands down and made my voice small. He can walk you down the aisle. Just give me a seat at the wedding so I can watch you get married. But she shook her head with a frown. No, I want my real dad to be happy. You're not invited. That's when my wife walked in and hooked her arm through his while my face got redder and redder. She looked at him and smiled. Is he still fighting us? Gosh, he's so embarrassing. He laughed and stepped forward to squeeze my shoulder. Thanks for keeping her warm till I could get back, buddy. That's when my eyes turned gray, and I turned to look at the wedding planner. Cancel everything. I'm not paying for this venue. My stepdaughter's face went red and she grabbed my sleeve. Wait, stop. But I was already grabbing my phone and calling every single vendor. The hall came apart right in front of us. Linens rolled off in armfuls. Lights went out row by row, and chairs rolled out the doors while my stepdaughter, my wife, and their new favorite man stood with their mouths open. I put the phone back in my pocket, told my stepdaughter, your real dad's got it covered from now. Then I walked out. They spammed my phone with calls the next morning, but I put it on Do Not Disturb and went back to relaxing on my yacht. I was making the final payment on my stepdaughter.
Well, go on the channel, bro.
Dustin called me scared of the deep end in front of half the pool, so I lied and told him I wasn't scared. I just didn't do regular dives anymore. He asked what I did do. My mouth said, the flying shrimp, before my brain could stop it. Dustin crossed his arms. Never heard of it. It's advanced, I said. They don't allow it at public pools. He walked over to the rule board and read every line out loud. No running, no glass, no horseplay. He turned around. Nothing about shrimp. Dustin looked at the crowd and said, guess he doesn't know how to do it. If I didn't jump, every kid at the pool would know he was right. I grabbed my cousin's full-face swim goggles and snorkel from his bag by the snack bar, pulled them over my face, and tried to tighten it. But Dustin yelled, let's go, shrimp, before I could figure out how to tighten the strap. If I was going to die on this diving board, I was at least going to look official. Half the pool followed me to the high dive. Dustin climbed up right behind me, close enough that I could hear him laughing through his nose. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Flying shrimp. The chant started right away from the pool below. Shrimp, shrimp, shrimp. I walked to the end of the board, adjusted the giant mask, and looked down through foggy plastic. The lifeguard blew her whistle. Jump or climb down. Climb down sounded perfect. I turned around, took one careful step toward the ladder, and the loose snorkel swung into my mouth. I spit it out, stepped wrong, and my wet heel slid off the edge. My heel went out from under me, and I grabbed for the rail but caught Dustin's ankle instead. He went tumbling off the platform right behind me. The snorkel spun away like a tiny helicopter. I hit the water sideways, knees up, arms wrapped around my legs, curled into the exact shape of a shrimp half a second before Dustin landed beside me. We both came up at the same time, me coughing with water shooting out of my nose, Dustin sputtering with my full-face goggles crooked across his eyes, the nose cover mashed sideways into his cheek. The chant flipped. Dustin got shrimped! Dustin got shrimped! The lifeguard walked to the rule board, picked up the chalk, and wrote one new line under no horseplay, no flying shrimp. I pulled the snorkel back into my mouth and said, that's why it's advanced. Dustin called me scared of the deep end in front of I was exiting the plane with Derek when a wall of cops stopped us and pointed, whose suitcase is this? Derek was holding both of our suitcases, and I stuttered, that one's mine, officer. But before I could ask why, he shoved me against the plane and snapped cold handcuffs around my wrists. You're coming with us. Derek, my best friend of 2 years, screamed, officer, what did he do? But they ignored him and hauled us both into a cold, windowless interrogation room, my heart pounding because I had no idea why this was happening. 2 officers dumped my suitcase onto the table, and out fell a small baggie of white powder. I gasped because I had no idea what it was or how it got there. A cop shoved it in my face. Fentanyl, enough to kill 1,000 people. This alone is life in prison. My knees buckled. Someone had set me up. That's not mine. I have a clean record. Derek jumped in. We always go on trips together. He'd never do this. He's my best friend. Then a detective leaned in. We've been tracking a family smuggling ring for months, and everything led to you. My mind raced, because the only person I'd been with was Derek. I turned to look at him, and that's when I saw his hand shaking as he shoved something deeper into his pocket. The outline of a small baggie. My whole body went cold. Did he put it in my suitcase? Derek caught me staring and calmly turned to the officers. I don't know what's gotten into him, but drug smugglers deserve to rot in jail. The cops nodded, grabbed me, and dragged me toward the door. My own best friend had framed me. I had no idea why, but I wasn't about to rot in jail for it, so I screamed, "Check his pocket! Check Derek's pocket!" The officers stopped and turned to Derek, and his face went white. "This is ridiculous. Put him in a cell." But they noticed him panicking, so they patted him down, and out came the same baggie of white powder that was in my bag. The room went dead silent, and Derek went to run, but the cops tackled him. His face went cold and empty. A detective cuffed him and turned to me. His family's been running this ring for years. They needed someone with a clean record to go down for it, so they used you. He smirked at me. "You carried for me every single trip. You just never noticed. I was never his best friend. I was his get-out-of-jail-free card. I was exiting the plane with I turned on my Xbox and grabbed my controller, ready to game all night, but then a window smashed behind me. I turned and saw a masked man with a neck tattoo climbing in, and my whole body instantly froze. "Mom!" My throat closed up from fear mid-scream, and when Mom rushed in, she went pale and threw her hands up. "Sir, take anything you want. Please don't hurt us." The masked man stared at her for a moment, then looked around the room, and his eyes settled on me. My heart pounded as he walked towards me with a grin. The pistol on his hip flashed, and I remember freezing in fear, thinking he was going to kidnap me. I mouthed at Mom, hit him with the lamp because his back was turned to her, but she was too scared to move. The man reached me, and his hand shot out. I closed my eyes, bracing for contact, but he reached past me and started shoving my Xbox into his bag. My stomach curled because that was my favorite thing in the world. I'd fought with Mom every day for weeks to convince her not to sell it, and he was taking it. I grabbed the man's arm. "Please, no, sir. Take anything else." But Mom crossed the room and snatched my hand away. "I'm sorry, sir." Her voice shook. "Take what you want. Don't listen to my son." She glared at me. "Our safety is more important than your Xbox." She backed away, gripping my arm, and I watched the man grin and climb out through the broken window with my Xbox. I dropped to my knees, crying and still hyperventilating. I thought I was going to die and my Xbox was robbed, but that night I woke up from a nightmare about what happened when I heard Mom's voice outside. "Thank you so much." I didn't know how else to take that Xbox from him. I looked out, watched as Mom gave $100 to a man with the same neck tattoo from earlier. I realized she'd traumatized me with a fake robbery just to steal my Xbox from me so I couldn't game anymore. At least she doesn't know about the Nintendo Switch hidden under my bed. I turned on my Xbox and was almost asleep in row 2 when every screen on the plane changed to a single black screen with white text. "You are asleep. We are sorry for what is going to happen." A woman a few rows back gasped so loud that half the cabin turned around, and I heard someone whisper, "Wait, are we actually asleep right?"
Just shut up.
Okay, guys, this is the last 6 videos.
The robot I built to do my chores went rogue and was stalking me through my own house. It was programmed to eliminate everything dirty it found. I didn't realize that I hadn't taken a shower that day, and I was filthy from assembling all the parts. Now that mistake could cost me my life. The minute it came online, I became its prime target. There was nowhere to hide. The robot had my scent and was closing in slowly. I was cornered with no escape route. It raised its left arm. At the end was a brush with steel bristles. "Eliminate mess by any means necessary." The steel brush began spinning with enough force to strip the skin from my bones. As the robot moved toward me, it knocked my grandmother's urn off a shelf. It shattered, and her ashes went everywhere. The robot immediately shifted focus. New target acquired. It used its other arm to vacuum the ashes. I took my opportunity and ran past it. "Sorry, Grandma, but thanks for buying me some time." As I ran through the house, I knocked over every plant, plate, and vase I passed, making more mess to distract the robot. I was great at robotics, so the machine made quick work of it. I ran up to the bathroom and hid in the shower, but it wasn't long before it found me. I looked around, nothing to grab but the handle to turn the shower on. I was cooked. Then an idea struck me like lightning. I threw the shower on. Cold water ran down my body, washing the dirt away with it. The robot stopped in its tracks. Target lost. It turned around in search of more mess, exposing the off switch on its back. I jumped out of the shower and threw the switch. The robot collapsed. I looked around my house. There was still a lot to clean up now, but after all of that, I was happy to do it myself. The robot I built to do I opened the door to my mom's friends, and they instantly ran upstairs into my room. I followed them confused and saw them opening my clothes drawers, inspecting dust on my windowsill, and grabbing candy bar wrappers off my desk, yelling, "Why isn't this cleaned?" At least that's how Mom made it seem it would be when she had me deep clean my room 2 hours ago, spraying antibacterial fluid in corners I'd never even touched. But when Mom's friends came over, not a single one went to my room. They were too busy drinking wine and making an actual mess in the living room, while I took off my cleaning gloves, having just wasted hours to please people who never even cared. I opened the door to my mom's friend. Dylan got in my face and crossed his arms. "You can't be here. This is my cliff." I told him this cliff was part of nature and didn't belong to anyone, then looked down at the 100-foot fall into the water. My legs shook, ready to do the cliff jump I'd been training for all summer. But then I felt Dylan shove me from behind. He knocked me off balance and I started descending 100 feet. I screamed, unable to control the fall, and smashed into the water face first. I came up 10 seconds later, water pouring from my nose as my whole body hurt. Dylan hurled through the air seconds later and landed in the water, pointing at me and laughing. "I told you this cliff was mine." At the hospital, doctors told me the impact had crushed my lungs, broken my jaw, my orbital bone, and both shins. I spent 6 months in the hospital getting surgeries and a hollow tube placed in my chest just so I could breathe again. My 2 brothers sat with me every day, swearing they'd get revenge on Dylan, but I stayed silent the whole time because even talking hurt too much. When I finally came back to school on crutches, Dylan took them from me on my first day. "What's wrong, Cliff Boy? Can't handle a little shove?" He shoved me in the back with the crutches just like before, and I immediately fell, my legs too weak to hold me up. I cried in pain as Dylan laughed, and at home told my brothers everything. The rest of the year, Dylan splashed me with water and hit my chest, knowing my lungs were weak, even threatening to push me again if I ever came to his cliff again. So I did. That summer, I walked up to the cliff, my heart pounding as I stepped with my crutches. Dylan was preparing to jump from 110 feet, and when he saw me, his face lit up. "Here to get pushed again?" He walked towards me, but I threw my hands up. "I'm not here to jump. I just want to watch you do what you're so good at." He laughed as I stroked his ego. "That's right, I'm the best." He turned around, but right as he started running towards the cliff, I stuck my foot out. Dylan tripped and face planted in the dirt. I laughed at him, but then I saw him curling his fists, ready to get up and beat me to a pulp. That's when I whistled. My 2 older brothers instantly emerged from the bushes and picked Dylan up before he could react. He thrashed, but they were too strong. I walked up to him. "Now say sorry or we're throwing you down." He instantly started begging. I'm sorry, please let me go." But I just shook my head. "I don't think so, Cliff Boy." I snapped my fingers, and my brothers tossed Dylan over, sending him flying 110 feet down his own cliff. I watched him smash into the water uncontrollably just like I had done, and laughed to myself. We'll see how he likes having no lungs. Dylan got in my face and crossed his arms. "You can't be here. This is my cliff." While on the train, the toddler sitting next to me started screaming and throwing his fists in the air, but his mom was glued to her phone and ignored him completely. Another passenger told her to control her kid, but she replied, "I know how to handle my own child," without even looking up from her phone. Her toddler punched the windows and cried louder, and that's when she leaned over and snatched my phone from my hands. She gave it to her kid and told me, "2 minutes, he's having a meltdown." The kid stopped screaming and instead started smearing his chocolate fingers all over my phone screen. The mom smiled at the passenger from earlier and smirked, saying, "See, told you I know how to control my child." But her child was jabbing my phone with his Cheeto dust fingers and trying to bend it in half while she just peacefully scrolled hers. I reached over and yanked my phone back from her kid, then moved further away from her. The toddler instantly screamed again and hit his seat repeatedly. She demanded I give him my phone back, but I just laughed. That's when her kid turned to her and reached for her phone instead. She tried to give him snacks and toys to distract him, but he threw them on the floor and hit her shoulder, screaming he wants her phone. Her face went red, and she reluctantly gave it over, and he immediately started smearing chocolate and Cheeto dust all over her screen and into her charging port. He was calm for about a minute, until the phone suddenly died. He threw it at the floor hard as he could, and it smashed into pieces. He screamed again and grabbed his mom's jacket, and I just put in my earbuds. The other passenger looked at her and said, "So, you sure you know how to control your child?" She stared at her broken phone, and her child screaming around her, and just started crying. While on the train, I was jumping on my trampoline when the old man next door sprayed me in the face with his hose. I lost my balance and missed the trampoline completely when I came down. "Mr. Crane, why would you do that? I could have been really hurt. Don't talk back to me, boy. I don't want to see you bouncing on that thing again, or I'll evict your family by the end of the week." He meant it. Mr. Crane was our landlord. He lived in the unit next door to us. We only ever saw him when he came to dig in his garden or when he came to collect rent. The trampoline was my favorite thing in the backyard, so I decided to wait it out and come back when the coast was clear. A few hours later, I was jumping again. Every time I bounced, I could see into Mr. Crane's backyard. He was gardening again. But instead of planting flowers, I saw that he was burying a human hand. I bounced again. This time, when I looked over the fence, Mr. Crane was staring directly at me. I told you I didn't want you jumping on that damn thing anymore. Now you'll pay. He ran full speed and hopped the fence into my backyard. I used my jump to get as close to my back door as possible and ran into the house. He followed me up the stairs into my room and stood in the doorway swinging his shovel at me. I was trapped. I looked out the window into the backyard. Below me was the trampoline. I dove out and aimed for it. I hit the target perfectly and bounced onto the ground. Mr. Crane jumped after me, but I was able to grab our garden hose and spray him in the face the same way he did to me. He came down just as hard as I did earlier. When he landed, he dropped his shovel. I knocked him out and called the police. They searched his home and found the remains of the family who lived in our unit before us. My favorite pastime may have saved my life. I was jumping on my trampoline. For years, kids at school made fun of me for not knowing what a Fortnite dub was, until one day, that finally changed. My parents banned all technology since I was born, so every day my mom ran a metal detector over me at the door. You know the rules, she'd say. Screens rot your brain. No technology until you're 18. I nodded, holding back tears, because I had no friends and no life. But that day, my uncle was waiting on the couch. He pulled me aside, slipped an iPad into my hands and whispered, "Trust me, you'll thank me later." I had no idea what he meant, but I snuck it into my room with shaking hands, praying my parents wouldn't find out. That night, I was so excited I hid under my blanket and downloaded Fortnite. And for the first time ever, I was playing with the kids who made fun of me. I was the first person to die, but I laughed anyway, finally feeling normal. Then footsteps pounded down the hall. I heard laughing. "What are you doing in there?" my mom screamed. I shoved the iPad under my mattress just as they burst through the door. My dad tore through my drawers while my mom flipped my backpack upside down, and I stopped breathing every time they got close. She crossed her arms. "Get up, we're checking your bed." My whole body shook as she checked under the bed, but she missed it. For 1 second, I thought I was safe. Then my dad lifted the mattress, and the iPad slid onto the floor. "An iPad? Who gave this to you?" my mom shrieked. "My uncle," I whispered. "That's it. No technology until you're 30. Then my dad grabbed his keys. "And we're going to your uncle's right now." At my uncle's door, my parents exploded. "You gave him poison behind our backs and ruined everything," my mom screamed, shoving the iPad at his chest. "Now he's banned until he's 30. I stood behind them, head down, tears dripping off my chin, too defeated to speak. But my uncle didn't take the iPad. He pointed at me. "Your son has no friends. He's bullied every day because of your stupid rule." I looked up, wiping my tears. I gave him that iPad because I was him once, and I swore I'd never let it happen to another kid. He's staying here every weekend so he can be a kid, starting today. My parents opened their mouths, but nothing came out, knowing my uncle was right. He grabbed me and shut the door on them. "Told you you'd thank me later." I smiled and bolted to his PS5. "Now teach me how to win dubs on Fortnite." For years, kids at school made fun of me.
I've never really been big on supplements, but I looked into ashwagandha and found it's been shown to help lower cortisol. And now that I've tried it, I feel calmer without feeling numb. The Lion's Mane has helped.
I put my hand over my little brother's mouth to keep him quiet. We were awoken in the middle of the night by the flash of emergency flares and the sounds of footsteps outside of our tent. We had no idea what was happening. The zipper at the front of the tent began to fall, and my brother screamed hard against my hand, but I was able to muffle it. When the flap opened, the full beam of a flashlight blinded us both. When our vision returned, we recognized the figures holding them almost immediately. It was our parents. "Get up." Their tone was pure panic. "There's no time to explain. We have to go now." I removed my hand from my brother's mouth and helped him up. Just then, we heard a noise that couldn't have been human. It sounded savage and primal, and worst of all, it sounded like it was 10 feet away and closing. We came out of our tent to see a 10-foot grizzly bear standing across the campfire from us. It was foaming at the mouth and moving unpredictably. Great, it's rabid too. The rabid bear charged forward straight through the campfire, sending pieces of burning wood flying, and pinned my little brother to the ground. "Oh, Jesus God, Caleb," my mother cried. "Son, look up." My dad pointed into the air just above the bear. Our family's camping supply crate hung suspended over a tree branch. This tactic was supposed to keep bears away, but it sure got this one's attention. "Hurry, do something." My brother was using all of his strength to keep the bear's jaws from touching him. The crate was staked to the ground about 5 feet from where I lay. I knew I wouldn't make it to the rope in time myself, so I pulled out my pocket knife, opened the blade, and made the throw of my life. The blade grazed the side of the rope. It was tattered, but not broken. The bear's jaws were lowering on my brother's head. Without another thought, I grabbed a piece of burning wood the bear had scattered and hurled it at the weakened rope. A spark landed exactly on the last strand, and the whole thing snapped with the sound of a bullwhip. The heavy supply crate dropped straight down onto the bear's head and shattered into splinters. The bear was knocked out. Together we pushed the unconscious bear off of my brother. Then a searchlight lit us up, accompanied by the sound of a helicopter. A voice over a loudspeaker said, "Parks Department Rescue Division, we saw your flare. I'm dropping a ladder now, you folks will be all right." We were flown to the nearest hospital, and we would never return to that campsite again. I put my hand over my little brother's mouth. I was in the house when I heard my son scream at the top of his lungs. And when I ran outside, his hands were clawing at his throat. I dropped to my knees beside him. "Buddy, what's wrong?" But he couldn't get a word out, his lips starting to swell. Then I saw the smear of purple on his hands, and the bush behind him, covered in berries that had never been in my yard before. My heart was pounding, because I'd just won full custody, and now he was choking in my arms. I called 911 and told them everything. When I looked back, my son's throat was closing, his face going blue. Then I saw her, my ex-wife who lost custody at the edge of the yard, police cars already pulling up behind her. She pointed at me and shrieked, "Those berries are poisonous! He keeps them in his yard! He's trying to kill our son!" She was trying to frame me as the bad guy, but my son was dying, so I turned him over and pounded his back to force the berries out. "Look, he's hurting him! Somebody stop him!" she screamed. A few purple berries flew from his mouth, but he still couldn't breathe. Then I remembered I kept an EpiPen inside, so I sprinted in, grabbed it, and slammed it into his thigh. He gasped, air finally filling his lungs, but before I could even hold him, the officers threw me to the ground and cuffed me. My ex scooped up our son, sobbing, "It's okay, my son. Mommy's got you now. Daddy's dangerous. I just won full custody, and now I was losing him over her lie." The cops dragged me toward the police car as my son coughed on the grass, the EpiPen finally working. "I love my son. Please, I didn't do this," I begged, but no one listened. Then a small voice croaked out, "Wait, Daddy didn't do it." Everyone froze and looked at him. My son pointed a shaking finger at his mother. "My mommy gave me the berries. She put it in his bush and said they were candy." My fists clenched. "You gave him berries he was allergic to. Are you insane?" The officers turned to my ex, whose face went white. "Ma'am, did you know he was allergic?" She stammered. I didn't know he had allergies. That was all it took." The cops let go of me and moved toward her, and as they turned her around to cuff her, a handful of purple berries tumbled out from her sleeve. I pulled my son into my arms. "This is exactly why you lost custody." I was in the house when I heard... I told my mom, "Can I please have no mayo on my sandwich?" But when she slid the plate across the table, the bread had mayo smeared all over it. I pushed it back, but she instantly got in my face. "Stop being so spoiled and entitled. Eat what you're given." Later that night, Dad ordered pizza, but it had anchovies even when I asked for none. And when I picked every anchovy off, my parents glared at me with their fists shaking in anger. The next morning, Mom made eggs with olives, knowing I hated olives. And when I refused to eat them, Dad slammed his fork on the table. "That's it. You're gonna learn to like what you're given one way or another." Dad marched me up to my room, and Mom came in holding a jar of mayo, a tin of anchovies, and a jar of olives. I laughed. "You really think I'll be eating that?" But then Dad wrapped a padlock around my door handle. "You need 3 keys to unlock this padlock. There's 1 key at the bottom of each jar. You're not leaving your room until you eat everything in front of you and get those keys." He placed a chain on the latch and slammed the door, locking it from the outside. I stared at the spoon and 3 of the worst things I'd ever smelled, and my hands shook as I couldn't understand why my parents couldn't just accept I didn't like certain foods. 2 hours in, I was banging on the door, screaming to be let out, but Dad just yelled, "Not until you eat everything." I gulped and sat down, but as soon as I ate a spoonful of mayo, my stomach turned. I gagged into my sleeve, knowing I'd never get out, but then I noticed my old gym bag under the bed and got a crazy idea. I grinned and dumped the pound of mayo into my bag. "Just wait till they see this." Then I did the same with the anchovies and the olives. The smell made me nearly sick as anchovy oil trickled through my bag, but I fished the 3 keys out from the bottom of each jar and unlocked my door. I was free, but I wasn't done. I left the anchovy mayo bag sitting on my parents' bed and calmly walked downstairs. My mom instantly grinned. "See, that wasn't so bad. No more picky eating." But I grinned back at her. I didn't eat it. I threw it all out. Dad stood up so fast his chair scraped. "You what? Where did it go?" I laughed. "I put it in a bag, but don't worry. Since you two love mayo and anchovies and olives so much, I left the whole bag in your room so you could eat it." Their faces went purple and they bolted up the stairs. Mom never gave me mayo again. I told my mom, "Can I please have no mayo on my sandwich?" But when she slid the plate across the table, the bread had mayo.
Sorry guys, and that's his story. I will watch her story next. Bye. This is me. Bye.